To the outside world, Marie Osmond's life looked like a picture of success. Fame, family legacy, a career built in the spotlight. Everything seemed polished and perfect. But behind that image was a past she rarely spoke about, filled with confusion, fear, and years of emotional weight she carried entirely alone. Marie Osmond's name has been famous for decades, but what many people don't realize is just how complicated her life was from the very beginning. Long before the television lights, the hit songs, and the carefully rehearsed smile, there was a little girl growing up in a world defined by pressure, expectations, and secrets that would follow her for years. Born Olive Marie Osmond on October 13, 1959, in Ogden, Utah, she was raised in a massive Mormon household that already stood out from most American families. She was the second youngest of 9 children, and the only girl among 8 brothers. Growing up in that environment meant there was rarely room for privacy, quiet, or individuality. Life inside the Osmond home moved like a machine, and every child had a role to play. Music sat at the center of everything. Her parents, Olive and George Osmond, turned the family into a tightly organized performing unit, teaching the children barbershop harmonies from a young age. What started as family, singing eventually became the foundation of an entertainment empire. But behind the cheerful image was a household built on discipline and relentless work. In her memoir, Might As Well Laugh About It Now, Marie explained how seriously her parents approached the family business. They invested every dollar they could into vocal coaches, dance instructors, and music lessons. Each child had to master an instrument and then help teach the others. Marie was assigned the marimba, even though she hated it. Personal preference rarely mattered. The expectation was simple: work hard, perform well, and keep moving. When the Osmond brothers first rose to fame during the 1960s, Marie stayed mostly in the background. But staying out of show business was never really an option in that family. At just 4 years old, she made her television debut on The Andy Williams Show. It was the beginning of a life spent performing for millions, even before she was old enough to fully understand what that meant. Years later, during an interview with Larry King, Marie admitted that her childhood was far more difficult than people imagined. She remembered asking her parents if she could go outside and play like other kids, only to hear the same answer every time. No, work came first. Recording sessions, rehearsals, and performances always took priority. To the public, Marie became known for her bright personality and perfect smile. But keeping up that image came with enormous pressure. Even as a child, she felt responsible for maintaining the family's flawless reputation. By the early 1970s, Marie's mother encouraged her to record a solo album. It became the moment that transformed her from the Osmonds' little sister into a star in her own right. While her brothers leaned heavily into pop and rock, Marie chose country music. That gamble changed everything. In 1973, she released Paper Roses, and the song exploded to #1 on the country charts. Suddenly, Marie Osmond was no longer just part of the family machine. She had become a major star on her own terms. As her success grew, the family saw another opportunity. Her brother Donnie was already one of the biggest teen idols in the country, and pairing the 2 siblings together seemed like a guaranteed hit. They were right. By 1974, Donnie and Marie had landed multiple top 10 hits together. In 1975, the siblings launched their own television variety series, and it instantly became one of the biggest shows on television. Even after the original run ended in 1978, the network reworked the format into the Osmond Family Hour because audiences still couldn't get enough of them. But behind the bright stage lights and perfectly timed smiles, Marie was quietly falling apart. At just 16 years old, she was already sharing stages with some of the most glamorous celebrities in the world. Yet she constantly felt insecure beside them. She described feeling painfully awkward whenever she stood next to women she considered impossibly beautiful. One moment that stayed with her happened while appearing on the Sunny and Cher Comedy Hour. Meeting Cher completely shattered her confidence. Week after week on Donnie and Marie, she stood beside women like Farrah Fawcett, Jacqueline Smith, Cheryl Ladd, and Raquel Welch. No matter how famous she became herself, she often felt like she didn't belong in the same room. Marie also dealt with constant unwanted attention from older men during those years. She later spoke openly about several uncomfortable encounters involving male guest stars, including one particularly disturbing moment with Groucho Marx, whom she described as inappropriate and predatory toward her. On the surface, the Osmonds were viewed as America's perfect family, wholesome, talented, and impossibly polished. But privately, Marie was struggling with trauma she had kept hidden since childhood. She shared that she had been mistreated by someone close to the family when she was very young, clarifying that the person was not a relative, but that the experience deeply shaped how she viewed the world. What made it even harder was a feeling that nobody around her recognized what was happening. For years, Marie carried anger toward her mother, struggling to understand how something so serious could go unnoticed. Only later in adulthood did she begin to accept that parents sometimes miss painful realities unfolding right in front of them. But by then, the emotional damage had already taken root. The trauma affected nearly every part of her life. Marie admitted that for a long time she associated men with fear and discomfort. The confusion became so overwhelming that she even questioned her own identity as a young girl. It was an incredibly heavy burden to carry, while simultaneously stepping into worldwide fame. In 1982, Marie married Stephen Craig, a basketball player from Brigham Young University. They welcomed a son, and for a moment, it looked like she had found the stability that had always escaped her. But by 1984, her music career had lost momentum, and in 1985, after 3 years of marriage, she and Stephen divorced. Almost exactly 1 year later, on October 28, 1986, Marie married Brian Blosel. Together they built a large family, raising 7 children, 2 biological and 5 adopted. From the outside, it looked like Marie had finally achieved the life she always wanted. But privately, she was heading toward one of the darkest periods of her life. After one of her pregnancies, Marie experienced far more than ordinary exhaustion. She battled overwhelming sadness, severe fatigue, and frightening episodes of uncontrollable shaking. Eventually, doctors diagnosed her with postpartum depression. In her memoir Behind the Smile, she described the breakdown as a result of a perfect storm: non-stop work obligations, the demands of motherhood, and years of ignoring her own limits. She recalled collapsing on her kitchen floor in tears. Unable to reconcile the polished television personality, the world knew what the woman privately unraveling behind closed doors. By the 1990s, country music had shifted dramatically toward a grittier, more rebellious sound, leaving Marie's wholesome image increasingly out of step with the times. In 1998, she reunited with Donnie for a daytime talk show. The goal was to recapture the sibling chemistry audiences had loved, but the revival never found the same magic. Behind the scenes, tensions between the siblings became impossible to ignore. Donnie had naturally taken charge during the original 1970s run, but by the late 1990s, Marie was no longer willing to play the passive younger sister. Arguments became so constant that producers reportedly had to mediate regularly. After 2 seasons, the show was canceled. In 2007, she joined the cast of Dancing with the Stars and quickly became one of the season's biggest fan favorites, fighting her way to a 3rd-place finish. The experience brought genuine positives into her life. The intense training helped her focus on her health in a way that was rooted in personal well-being rather than outside pressure. With heart disease running in her family, she viewed the lifestyle change as genuinely important. A couple of seasons later, her brother Donnie joined the competition and won the entire thing. Yet another chapter in the lifelong sibling rivalry that followed the Osmonds since childhood. In 2009, after her daughter Jessica came out as a lesbian, Marie publicly voiced her full support. Considering her deeply religious background and earlier controversies surrounding Mormon beliefs, many people were surprised by how openly supportive she became. For Marie, the issue was not political theater. It was about her child. She spoke about wanting Jessica and members of the LGBTQ community as a whole to live full, happy lives and achieve their dreams without shame. The stance marked a noticeable shift from a more conservative image many people had associated with her for decades. In her memoir, Marie reflected on a painful truth that took years to fully understand. Abuse does not always come in one obvious form. Among everything she endured, the deepest scars came from sexual abuse during her childhood. For decades, she carried that trauma in silence, a secret so buried that even her own brothers had no idea what she had gone through. It was only after becoming a mother herself that she finally found the strength to speak openly about being sexually assaulted as a child. She described a terrifying pattern. Every incident happened in places her parents trusted or around people they believed were safe. Each time, fear kept her silent. She was threatened and warned never to tell anyone, made to believe that speaking out would destroy her family and cost them everything they had built. Marie later clarified that the abuser was not a family member or someone who remained in her life long term. But even after that person disappeared, the emotional damage stayed behind. She acknowledged that the details themselves mattered less than the lasting effects trauma leaves on a person's spirit. When people questioned why she never reported the abuse at the time, Marie explained that she came from a generation where such subjects were rarely discussed openly. Silence was expected, especially when families feared shame or public humiliation. She believed that telling her loved ones would only hurt them without changing what had already happened. So instead, she tried to bury the pain and move forward. But trauma rarely disappears just because someone tries to outgrow it. In 2019, while co-hosting the talk, Marie opened up about another deeply personal consequence of that abuse. She revealed that around age 8 or 9, she had believed she might be gay. As she later explained, those feelings were rooted in trauma rather than identity. The abuse had left her so fearful and distrustful of men that she wanted nothing to do with them. That confusion also fueled years of uncertainty about herself. At the time, she did not yet understand that her mind was reacting to severe emotional trauma rather than revealing her identity. Ironically, one of the things that helped her heal was growing up surrounded by the men in her own family. Watching the way her brothers and father treated her with love and protection slowly helped rebuild her trust over time. Eventually, she came to understand that the fear and confusion she had carried were connected to what had happened to her, not to who she was as a person. By the time she spoke about it publicly with a sense of closure, the people responsible for abusing her were no longer in a position to cause harm. And Marie Osmond, after decades of silence, had finally told her own story, on her own terms.